That's the new single, right? That's the new song. The new song.
That is the new single, yeah.
And I know you touched on a little bit of the story, West Coast. We want to know first of all, where you were on the West Coast and why were you sick? What were you doing? We want to know the dirt.
So, we were, it's the worst story, actually.
Great, doesn't that?
Because we had to cancel Coachella. And a big because I was like, what happens is you tour around on a tour bus and say there's 11 or 12 of you on the bus. If one of you gets ill, it just spreads like wildfire. And so you start kind of like greeting each other in the morning with your hand over your face like, hey, mate, stay away from me. And it was my turn to get ill. And there's kind of a point where you realize, sometimes you're a bit under the weather, but you can get through it and the show will still be a vibe and everyone will have fun and everyone will go home happy. And then there's a point where you realize this isn't going to work. And we were at Big Sur. Which is beautiful, And so the band and crew were out there having the time of their lives, sharing photos on the group WhatsApp and everything. And I was going, I'm ill. Please leave me alone. So I was a bit poorly. And there's also an element of when you're away from home, the last thing you want to be is ill, Yeah. So, but maybe I should do it more often because I got a song out of it.
That is so not the sick that we all thought you were talking about. No. It wasn't at all, was it? We thought maybe you partied a little hard down at Paradise Cove or something in Malibu.
Come and get to know me a little better. I don't party much.
No?
No, well, I do my best. It doesn't come naturally to me.
That's good, though. That's why you're able to get up this early as a rock star and come and do these. You love touring, though. You're having a great time doing it, right?
I absolutely love touring.
What do you do? Because I know there's a long period of time either on the plane or on a bus. What do you do like to take up time? Because we were talking about some of those flights are just 12, 15 hours.
Well, I was saying just before, so we did the big flight from London to Australia earlier in the year, and I think you do one that's 16 and then you have 2 hours and then it's another 12-hour flight or something. And I kind of got into it. They were like, 1 hour to landing. And I was like, like I was making this feel like home. And now when I do flights that are kind of 11 hours, it's the same thing. It's child's play now.
But what are you doing though during that? Because if you do it once, we're just like, that's a nightmare when you're doing it all the time.
Should I tell you what? And I don't want to sound boring, but I've got a new rule on flights where I'm not allowed screens so that I have to read. So I'm trying to read more.
Yeah, this sounds miserable.
I'm learning.
Sounds terrible.
I'm getting there. Yeah.
What about here in LA? I'm guessing there's things that you like to do in each city. Anything specific about LA that you like to do or like to go?
Yeah, and you please don't sigh. I don't know if this is all too touristy, but I go up to Griffith Park, up to the observatory, stroll around. What, am I a local now? Does that make sense? I do that. There's a place called Earth Cafe. Does that sound?
No.
I was there this morning, whole time. I've got a few friends that live here now, which is lovely. And the thing that is, you can't get away from with LA is it's just, and you know this, but it's huge. So I know a tiny bit of Los Angeles.
Probably from TV shows and movies and stuff, and then you go see it in person. Especially Earth, and you've been watching too much Entourage, probably, right?
No, I haven't watched it yet.
No?
I want to,
Okay.
It is funny. I remember we did a TV show over here about 3 years ago. We did Ellen, and it's on. You can go and drive around the sets of all of these TV programs. And there was this girl that was working there, and I kind of said, look, is there any chance we can jump on the back of a golf buggy and have a tour? And now, in hindsight, I know that she looked a bit shocked when I asked her, but she said yes. And I was going, what's that? And then halfway through, she said, it's my first day, I haven't got a clue. I was like, why didn't you just say? But yeah.
I know maybe something that's keeping up your time is you're doing this podcast now. And I was interested in it because I saw the inspiration. He's doing like this podcast where he's interviewing people. I wait to hear this list of people. But the inspiration was it comedians interviewing comedians? Is that like to do the Seinfeld thing? What's on Netflix where he's Seinfeld in a car with other comedians?
Yeah. There's like these whole. Essentially, I find it really hard to listen to music when I'm writing and recording my own because I start going, they've done this, and maybe I should, And I found these podcasts that were comedians talking to comedians, and it was kind of far enough attached from what I do, but it was still entertainment. So I was getting it, and they kind of talk very candidly about what they do and don't like about what they do. And I thought there should be this for kind of pop stars, or pop acts. And then I was looking through and I couldn't find one. So I was like, I'm going to do it. And so, I went out and bought the microphones, and we kind of sit for an hour or so, me and my guests, and just talk.
I'm envisioning you like going to Guitar Center and buying all this setup.
I did. I was
stuff.
like, how easy is this to use? Because they're radio mics as well. And he was like, yeah, you just need to find a frequency. I was like, I can't be doing that. I can't. I just need to press on.
It's like a little USB mic. And then tell your very first guest.
My first guest was a young man from the UK called Ed Sheeran. Yeah. So he was my first guest. And my last guest was another young man from the UK. Not quite as young, but Elton John was the last guest. Yeah.
You're trying to take our jobs over here.
I know. Well, this is it. And
You're
it's
getting
kind
better.
I don't get starstruck, or, I kind of feel like everything that I've done feels like another rung on the ladder, and it's like a progression. But I'll be honest, I was sat in Elton John's lounge waiting for him to come downstairs, and I just went, how have you managed this?
How did you? Do you pick up a phone and start calling friends who know?
No, so actually, on my first out, if you listen to so it's called George Ezra and Friends, and one of the main things I wanted to talk about Elton about was he still, bless him, he gets a fax every week that has a list of all the new releases, and he highlights the ones he wants to hear, and every week he listens to roughly 40 albums, 3 songs off each one, and he's done that since time began, as far as I'm aware. And he showed me the books, and it is like a handwritten highlighter job. It's insane, really. And I got a call on my first album. I was in Europe somewhere, and my tour manager said, Elton John's going to ring you. And this particular tour manager loved winding me up. So I didn't believe him. And then the phone rang, he passed it over, and my first question was, is this, a bit too confidently as well, I was like, is this really Elton John? And it was. So he does this thing, and once a week he'll ring young artists and just say, keep on doing what you're doing, which I think that works wonders for people's confidence, to hear, someone that's done it before and, once or twice to give you.
Good for you, man.
Yeah, man.
That is a special experience. The second album, 4 years in between these albums. What's going on? Why so long?
I wish it hadn't taken so long. I think I really struggled to write while I was on tour. I think everything was so new to me. So every experience was a new one. And then when I came off tour, the first 2 months I made the most of seeing loved ones and friends and family that I hadn't seen. And then that wore thin quite quickly. And and then I kind of... in many ways, this second record kind of feels like my first. The first one, I really felt like a kid. I didn't think anyone was going to hear the album, in all seriousness.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because obviously, as you heard from the song he just played, Paradise, it's so much different than everything else that's on the radio. And the first album was like that. This one, how are you... It's got to take something in you to even try to fight through these walls of what is popular and cool now.
Shall I tell you what, though? And it's the truth. You just have to be selfish. So you just have to think, do I like this? Because I'm the person that has to sing them.
Sure.
So if I don't like them, there's a real problem, So you have to that has to be your priority. And I think also all of us that listen to music, even if it's subconsciously, I think we can tell if somebody's telling the truth or not. So I think we can kind of sniff out if somebody's written something because they think people are going to like it. And I could be wrong, but I think that's the way to do it. Just make sure you enjoy it and, you believe in it.
Because it's gutsy. It's a risk. It's a big risk.
Yeah, I guess so. I think that I've learned a lot between the first and the second. I know everyone always says that. But
Go on.
And not but that I took the first record for granted at all, but it was my introduction to music, and it started to become normal, what I was doing. And then because of the gap, I'm able to go, no, this is crazy, man. This is amazing what you're doing. As an experience, so I'm able to appreciate it all in a different way.
Staying at Tomorrow's. That's the name of the album. Mm-hmm. Who is Tomorrow, or where is Tomorrow? What's the deal?
So I figured out, I know in myself that I'm not great at writing when I'm at home. So I was in a fortunate position where I could take myself away for a month. And I decided to go to Barcelona, which is a city that I love, but don't really know that well. And so I had that idea, and I lived with that idea for a few weeks. And then I was like, I know what I'm going to do. Instead of staying at a hotel, I'm going to find a stranger on the internet that's renting out a spare room, and I'm going to go and live with them. And it was, my managers were going, are you sure?
It sounds like a terrible idea. Yeah.
And it wasn't until I landed, I just thought, what are you doing, man? Why have you done this? And I met my host, and my host was Tamara. And her and her friends were all, I lucked out because she was roughly kind of my age, and her friends and her were artists, musicians, designers, and, you know, and they worked Monday to Friday, so I didn't really see them much. And then I would spend my days walking around, and kind of halfway through the trip. And on these trips, like, I take a guitar and a notebook, but I don't really write the songs on the trip. So I wait till I get home to write the songs. But I realised that it was an important trip for the album. And halfway through the trip, I knew that I was going to call the album Staying at Tomorrow's, having not written a single song for the album. But I had that idea, which I don't know if that's the healthiest way to do it, but it just made sense to me.
Next album is I left that notebook at Tamara's. I got to go get that notebook. I forgot. And this might be kind of a radio nerdy question, but I also noticed that because a lot of songs, like this album is like a program director's dream, music director's dream, because all the songs are like just under 3 or just over 3 minutes.
Yeah.
Is that a challenge? Because you hear people like Ryan Tedder who do these 4.5-minute songs, but they will not release it until they've cut it down to like 3:05.
No, what I struggle to do is get it past 2:30.
Yeah?
Yeah, genuinely, because I still haven't quite understood mid-lates. So there's a part of the song, the mid-late, which when it's done well, it's brilliant. You know, it can really make a song, but it's my attention span, I think. It's why I only watch Pixar, because it's over quick.
Well, no, it's funny that you say attention span, because I think that's why songs are shorter.
Yeah.
Because there's so many different choices that people have.
But actually, it's gone full circle, because the Beatles, none of them were over 2:30.
Right.
And what we've done is pushed it up. So what I'm saying is I'm right, and Ryan Tedder's wrong.
You're making everything better. There you go. Okay. Where'd this guy go? Did he take off?
He's gone to the airport, I think.
Oh,
James
good.
Genuinely, it's our last 2 days ago. On Sunday, we played our last gig of the whole tour at the Wilton in LA, and the band and crew fly home today, so we're off home. Yeah, this is our final thing, so thank you very much for being here with us.
Yeah. I was going to say you want to play another song, but do we have to wait for him to come back, or is he...
No, I'm going to do it by myself.
Oh, he's off. Great. Okay.
I mean, you can give it a go. We'll just turn it off.
That's off, but that'd be inappropriate, right? All right, please put your hands together one more time for George Ezra.
Thank you. Thank you, Dave.